What has to happen when the lead becomes a buyer? There were a few conversations that came up several weeks ago, and I found myself repeating myself over and over again in the agency with our clients. And when I started repeating myself through these different conversations, I was saying the same thing to different people, but the problem remained the same, which let me know that that problem exists. And that problem is getting our marketing to the place where our words, ad copy, creative shows up in a prospect's world when they have reached a point that they have the internal urgency and motivation to actually solve the problem. What we know about the awareness, consideration, and decision stage in the buyer's journey is that someone who is aware that they've got a problem could be a prospect for our product or service. By the way, when we say prospect, we're not talking about the demographic, we're talking about the psychographic, where they actually admit in their mind that they have a problem. When we want to get them to become a customer or they become a buyer in our world, there's this journey that is happening in their mind that we have to make sure our marketing takes them along that path or shows up along that path so that when they are ready, we are there, but it's them being ready to actually solve it. And so what we are seeing in these conversations had to do with marketing not working in some regard. And it's because we are somewhat impatient that our marketing is talking to people before they've actually decided to act. All marketing is not going to meet the person when they are ready to act. Our market will agree that they have a problem. They might agree that if they don't have enough cash flow in their business, they might need some sort of cash flow line, loan, whatever that might be. Someone might own a home and they might believe and know that they've got things that have been lingering in their house and your company could actually solve those. But if they haven't made the decision to solve those yet, you really don't have a prospect yet. Because the person with the problem isn't a prospect until they decide that it's time to solve the problem. They have to decide that it's time to solve the problem. Doesn't mean yet at this moment they're ready to solve it with you, but they've got to decide to solve the problem. So our ads and our copy and our emails might be hitting the person who agrees to have the problem, but they have to get to a place, and our marketing can help to get them to a place where they want to say, I can't live with this current situation anymore. We have a number of prospects that are in our world, but until and unless they agree that it's time to solve it now, then we get kind of frustrated with our marketing. But the reality is 100% of any market will never be ready to solve the problem today. So the difference between somebody who clicks and converts is something called internal urgency that matches their decision threshold. Their internal urgency that matches their decision threshold, meaning something inside of them says, I cannot continue in this same place, and I've got to make a decision to do something about it. In a roundabout way, they reach a point where enough is enough. And that's something that sometimes our marketing can help assist with. You guys know that I love the problem, agitate, excite, solve framework if we want to expand it. But the truth of the matter is, we're not trying to be dramatic, hyperbolic, trying to use fake scarcity. We're really trying to help move the person who has the problem along this path of making a decision to solve it. One thing that's come up in the last couple of weeks in these conversations is we've been talking about the triggering event. What is the triggering event that will move someone from, I know I have the problem, to I need to do something about it, right? And the funny thing is that can be different for everyone, different in each niche. But the funny thing about this 8 billion people on this planet is the triggering event isn't going to be the same for everyone, even if they're your ideal prospect. The company I was speaking with happens to operate in the coaching space. And the funny thing is that every business owner should probably have a business coach. Probably. There's probably not a lot of people that would disagree with that statement. The challenge is that the triggering event for a business owner to hire a coach is not going to be the same for every business owner. No different than it is in our agency. When people hire Mindship Digital, the triggering event that gets them to the point when they say enough is different for everyone. In some cases, it could be some sort of financial bill. It could be some life event. It could be a comment from a friend. It could be a medical report. It could be a video they watch. It could be going to a conference or a seminar. It could be something in your email sequence where they finally wake up and they're fed up and they've got to do something about it. And this is where things get really challenging with marketing, because we would love it if marketing was just as simple as we diagram it in the lean growth method or the leads from scratch process. We would love it to be just a straightforward path. But a true prospect is when the person not just acknowledges they've got the problem. You guys, I went bankrupt in 2008. I didn't get bankrupt overnight. In fact, and I'm perfectly fine sharing this with you in transparency to give you an example, because I started sitting back thinking about how this was applying to things that I've done over the years. In 2007, when we first started feeling financial pressure in the real estate and lending industry, I had a problem. But While bankruptcy was an option, in my mind at that moment, it wasn't optional. Do you hear the difference? The financial problem was a cash flow problem. One of the options was extend credit financing. Another option was get more loans, use current cash flow, take from savings, all of those things. In the worst case scenario, the option was bankruptcy. But during the early stage of my acknowledgement of the problem, bankruptcy was not an option for me. It wasn't until I reached a decision threshold moment where it became the only option after I'd exhausted all of the others when I ended up saying, enough is enough. I can't go any further. I've done all I can do. And now my own internal urgency at that moment said, this is the only thing left to do. So while I had spoken with a bankruptcy attorney 10 or 12 or 14 months earlier, what they suggested went in one ear and out the other. So while I was an ideal prospect for this attorney, I was not internally motivated to take his solution at that time. And it was nothing he could do for the next 10 to 12 months, whatever that time frame was, to convince me otherwise. Because I had the mindset of, I've got perfect credit, and I still did at that time. I had perfect credit, but I saw what was going to happen on the horizon. I saw what was happening in the industry. I foreshadowed what was about to take place. I was trying to get ahead of it. Bankruptcy was not an option. Then the months ensued that followed, and I still, even though I had a problem, I still wasn't his best prospect. I did go see him, this guy, but I didn't take his solution. There was nothing in his marketing he could have said to manufacture my own internal decision-making process that made it urgent enough when I finally did to do it. There wasn't any reviews he could show me. There wasn't any call by this day and you get X, Y, and Z. There was no putting it on sale. It just didn't matter. So when we get our leads, 50 leads here, 30 leads there, 100 leads there, we have to remember that each and every one of them have their own thought process going on. And it's not our marketing that's failing. It's the fact that we have to remember that there are so many variables to when a perfect prospect will actually decide to make a decision. And that's why we talk about all three stages. We talk about the brand awareness stage. We talk about the lead gen phase. We talk about the email phase. We talk about the retargeting phase. That's a more holistic way of thinking about it. And so we want to make sure our timing aligns with their timing. The problem is we just don't know when their timing is going to align. It's their internal urgency that must be high, and then their belief in our ability to take care of their problem when they're ready, which is what's going to make marketing look like it's working all the time, over and over again. I know I'm sounding a little bit on the esoteric and the high level side, but I do believe this buyer psychology is getting more complicated with ChatGPT and AI in the world. What I'm sensing and seeing, because we got so much data, is that I do believe people are pushing their decision making off because they can run to ChatGPT, AI, Gemini, Claude, Perplexity, you name the flavor of AI. They're not just running to Google. They are pushing things out. They are testing things. They're trying to get an answer. They're trying to get a solution. They're using ChatGPT like a coach. They're using ChatGPT for the resource that it is. So it is delaying decision-making processes. It is pushing prospects further out of thinking maybe they can solve it on their own in a DIY kind of way. We can't put some prospects in the whole of all prospects. Here's what we know. Here's what I know. Here's what I stand on. Here's what I believe in. And I've seen enough of this at bats over 34 years, is that buyers get to a place where they'll say, I'm annoyed with this. I'm frustrated with this, and I've had enough, but I cannot live without it. I cannot live like this anymore. It's got to be fixed. They could be a person with a problem, but until they can't live with it anymore, they'll just be someone on your email list. And you have to be okay with that. They'll just be someone in your world on your social media, and you have to be okay with that. Heck, sometimes you won't even know that they're in your world because they won't even like, comment, or share any of your content. Maybe they're not even clicking on your emails, but they are a person with the problem. They just aren't ready to solve it yet. So we want to make sure that this is the mindset we take to the longevity of our marketing process. And I know people want to move faster and get results quicker, and I get it, and I do too. But I just want to make sure that we do have this conversation, because over the last several weeks, it's not like this has just happened overnight, but we are coming up with less data answers that show where the actual problem lives. And we have to begin looking at what are the other factors that are slowing people down in the buying process. Arguably, if I have an abscess in my mouth and I've got a tooth that's just killing me for the last 3 weeks, I have an emergency. I'm going to the dentist to get that knocked out. But these conversations have all come up with entrepreneurs and businesses who have products or services that are discretionary, not an emergency. Discretionary means I can do it when I want to do it, if I decide to do it, but I may never have to do it, versus the emergency side. Some of our businesses have an emergency product or service. Some of our businesses don't have an emergency product or service. And those two buyers are definitely different buyers. And I think this talk today is about this idea of those of us who have a discretionary product or service where someone doesn't have to, and until they believe that they can't go any further with their current situation, they have to decide enough is enough. We got to do something about it. What we can do in our marketing is to continue to resurface the fact that there is pain present, to consistently remind them of the cost of inaction. Cost of inaction is huge because you can delay getting the tooth hurt. See, the tooth, you didn't get the abscess overnight. I'm using this as an exact example. No one gets an abscess in their tooth overnight. That pain started a while ago, but it was mild. My bankruptcy didn't happen overnight. It was mild, and then it grew, and then it grew, and then it grew, and then it grew, and then it got out of control. And then we have to continue to tell these transformational stories of where a person who was in their situation with the problem finally got to their enough is enough moment and got the transformation from the work that we do. They tell the stories of what the person who had the problem, their perfect, ideal person who made their own decision about enough is enough. I've got to do something about it. I can't live like this anymore, whatever that looks like, and how you help transform their outcomes. When people are not yet ready to make that decision, sometimes it's a matter of providing clarity on what life is going to look like on the other side. Meaning, if they take action today and they decide to no longer stay in their current situation, what would life look like on the other side? Quite honestly, to go back to my bankruptcy situation, I was deathly afraid. I mean, until I understood this, what I'm about to say about it, I wasn't willing to accept bankruptcy as an option. What ended up landing for me was a moment of clarity once it got to an extreme point that he said something like, you do realize that after bankruptcy, you can start a clean slate of credit in 90 days. Here I was trying to protect my credit. And he's saying, oh, no, if you just get rid of this because you can, not because you're a bad person. Sure, you made some bad financial calls, over leveraged, et cetera, and the industry went crazy, but you can start all over. That's what it's for. It's called Chapter 7, A Fresh Start. And I was like, huh. And in my mind, for some reason, I thought I'd never get credit again. So I was trying to do everything I could to protect the credit. So him providing this clarity and helping me understand that the decision, while I was delaying the decision, I was actually delaying the very thing I was hoping to accomplish, which was to restore my credit. So it's very interesting. So in our work, how can we message into the fact that taking action could actually get them closer to the result and quickly out of pain? And then, of course, have we clearly articulated and drawn out the pathway of ease? In our agency at Mindship Digital, we are continuously trying to figure out the pathway of ease so that with all of the options out there that our prospects have, how can we make it easy for them to trust us, to know how our process works? How can we make it easy so that they can engage when they're ready to engage without them feeling like this is going to be a problem? And so today, what we've been talking about is a bit about the buyer psychology in today's market, data that we've been seeing about this decision threshold, this moment of what is it going to take for our prospect to be ready to convert, and how can we begin thinking about those spots in the buyer's journey and not give up on our marketing, not give up on the Facebook ads, not give up on the emails, not give up on, but understand that there are some things happening in the buyer's journey today that are out of our control, but that ultimately there are some people who are thinking they don't have to make the decision to do it our way because they may be doing it another way, whether that's using an AI tool or whether that's using our competitor or doing some DIY solution. The question is, in our marketing, have we really surfaced the real pain? Are we really narrowed in to the real pain of what that prospect is sitting in? If we're too far away from the actual pain that they're sitting in and we can't describe it as well as they're thinking about it, then we have to do some work there. Secondarily is, are we articulating the cost of inaction in a way, not with fake scarcity, not with fake urgency, not with hype and hoopla, but are we actually painting a picture so that they understand that the cost of inaction is worse than the cost of staying where they are? And then messaging in a way that drives a little bit more of that internal urgency for them to get to the point of saying enough is enough. And in some cases, that's clarity. I've been saying that a lot lately. Sometimes it's just clear. What does the process look like? How's it going to work? Maybe they've been through it before and they didn't like it. Maybe they've been down this path before and they hated the process. Think buying a car. And if anybody's bought a car in the past, no one ever wants to do that again, even if they want another car, because it's so horrible. It's just horrible. My daughter bought a car not long ago from CarMax and it was unbelievably not horrible. But why the rest of the industry? It's horrible. So maybe how do we paint the picture of how our process works? How do we paint the picture of the ease and the friction that we've removed in order to get them to act? To kind of bring this last point to a close is, let's not be so in a hurry to think that our marketing isn't working, but let's make sure that we are recognizing where we are in today's buying cycles, recognizing what technology is doing to empower our buyers more than ever before, yours, mine, and all of ours. Let's make sure we are acknowledging that the majority of the world are not DIYers. I guarantee most people are not going to build their own house, remodel their own kitchens. They're not going to take out their own financing with a DIY lender. The vast majority of people will not be DIYers. They're not experts at it, but they can and will delay the decision until the moment they believe that enough is enough. And so our work in marketing is to continue to remind ourselves and continue to peel back the layers to make sure that our marketing is, in fact, putting the right message in front of them that would get them to believe sooner than later that it's only going to get worse if we wait. The buyers are still on their journey. There's still plenty of them out there. Each and every one of you selling what you're selling is needed, right? There's space for you. There's room for you to do whatever you want. Start from zero and go to hero, go from 0 to 1,000,000, whatever it might be. There's plenty of people on the planet. And this is what's been coming up a lot for us at the agency, a lot for us with our bigger clients who have really big budgets, and we have lots of data. And sometimes the data isn't telling us exactly what the problem is. So what we had to start doing was really looking a little deeper and saying, there's something else going on. And it's our job to continue to refine what we do in our buyers' journeys. So to remind you, we're not talking about just finding out who it is, but once we know who that person is, demographically and psychographically, we need to be really clear about the problem that they will then go or pathway to look for a solution for a product or service that they will purchase. And what we've been talking about largely today is that threshold moment between I know I've got the problem and I can't do it any longer and I've got to go on a pathway to get it solved. And it's that little part between I know I've got the problem and I've got to start to do something to solve it. That's this whole conversation today. Once they start to go through that arc of decision and saying, you know what, I got to do something about this. You've heard me say this back in the day. Our job is to be there when they're ready, whenever they're ready, with the help of email and remarketing and retargeting. Because if we did our opt-in offer properly, if we invited them to our world properly, then it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And most of us tire out for the example we've talked about today. They'll tire out if they have to wait 6 months, 8 months, 12 months. And I know that sounds like, well, Daryl, I got bills to pay today. Daryl, I got projects we need to run today. And I get it. But when we understand wherever our budgets are, we have to understand this is a process. Hey, thanks for watching. We know you could be anywhere on the internet and you chose to be here with us and we appreciate that. We've got some more free stuff somewhere around here or down in the description below. We'd love to have you in our community. Talk to you soon.